How often have you gotten to the end of the day and just felt like, oh, I have been active all day, I just can't exercise? Or you've gotten to the end of the week, or you've looked back over the last month and you've said, oh my gosh, I've just been so active, I've just been so busy, I've just been so full of stuff, there's just no way I could have exercised. This is something that we hear all the time, but there are issues with this line of reasoning, and that is exactly what we are going to be talking about during today's episode of the Exercise is Health podcast. We're going to cue the intro song, and then we're going to dive right into this conversation. Welcome to the Exercise is Health podcast, where we're talking about exercise, health, and the interconnectedness of the two. We are your hosts, Charlie
and Julie,
and we will be coming to you every single week from our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg. Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Charlie. Before we dive into this week's episode, I want to let you know that we recently released a book called The Exercise for Life Method. And if you enjoy the conversations that we have every single week on this podcast, then you are going to love this book. So to pick up a free copy of this book, all you have to do is go to exerciseforlifemethod.com. Now, without further ado, let's dive into this week's episode. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Exercise is Health podcast. We are your hosts, Charlie
and Julie,
and we're coming to you from our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg, here in Schaumburg, Illinois. Now, at Muscle Activation Schaumburg, we believe your health is your most valuable asset, and the single best thing that you can do to both boost and protect this asset is exercise. Specifically, exercise is geared towards building the health and function of your muscles. Now, one thing that we so often hear from people, though, is that they just don't have the time, the energy, or the desire to exercise, and largely in part because they feel like they're just so busy and so active all day long that, well, I don't actually need to go to the gym. I don't actually need to do weights. I don't actually need to do specific exercise because I'm just active all the time. But there are issues with that line of reasoning, and that's what we want to talk with you about today.
Charlie, I have so many clients that I've had conversations with probably in the last 3 weeks where I say, so how have your workouts outside of here been going? And the response I always get is not how their workouts have been, but, well, I don't sit down throughout the day. I'm really active. And this is what we hear all the time. I also remember, this one's a unique one, but I don't know, I have a soft spot in my heart for this client. I used to work with her when I lived in Naples, and her job was actually really active, which is really uncommon. I think most people's jobs are actually pretty sedentary. Her job was surveying the environment. So she would, in Naples, she'd go out on boats, go out into different swamps and things. So she was really active throughout the day, but again, it wasn't a workout. So we're talking about that being active throughout the day and how that is really going to be a perfect recipe for you to be missing out on so many of the potent health benefits of exercise. I also wanted to share this funny story. When Charlie was introducing this topic, I was thinking about when I was a kid. Do you remember when you were a kid and before school started, you'd always go to the mall and get new school clothes?
Oh, like before the school year started.
Yeah.
Not like we were going before school, but yes.
Something I always remembered about that day was that my feet would be so tired. I remember being so excited to go, and then near the end of the day, I remember I was like, we only can go in stores that have benches. I have to sit down. My legs are so tired. So I get it. Once you're active all day, you are really tired, but it still doesn't get you the health benefits of exercising.
No. I mean, it's funny you bring that up because as you're saying that, I remember going to Great America or Noah's Ark or, these amusement park places. And yeah, you're walking around all day, but that's not your workout. You wouldn't classify that as, okay, yeah, that's what I do. I go to Great America, I don't work out. You wouldn't say that, right? But that's more or less the mentality that a lot of people have. And so we need to talk about this. And first, we need to talk about what being active all day is really good for. But then we also need to dive into why it's actually not enough. And even though you feel like you've been active and moving all day, it's not enough. And that's what we want to get to at the end.
Now, I do want to let you know that there are some benefits of moving throughout the day. And I think a good place for our conversation to start would be to talk about the two different categories of exercise that Charlie and I like to educate everyone on, because I think these categories can help you just in your brain realize which one do you do a whole bunch of and which one do you not do a whole bunch of. I notice that without trying, I end up doing a whole bunch of the moving throughout the day one, and I have to put in a lot of effort to do the go to the gym and do the workout one. So there's two kinds. One is called all the time exercise. And if you like to move around all day long, you do a whole bunch of all the time exercise. That's the movement and the activity and the quote unquote exercise that you get when you're not exercising, if that makes sense. When you're cleaning the house, when you're gardening, when you're going up and down the stairs preparing for your day, when you're out surveying swamps, if that's what you do for your day job. If you are a server in a restaurant, that would be all the time exercise. It's movement that you're getting when it's not designated workout time.
Exactly. And the keys to this are that it's really low intensity. And as the name implies, it's done all the time, meaning it's done intermittently throughout your day. It's not that you have, your 60-minute walk that you go on. It's done all the time, all throughout your day. So I think with that in mind, you need to be very honest with yourself. If you're telling yourself that, yeah, okay, I'm just so active throughout my day, and so because of that, I don't need to do additional exercise. You have to ask yourself, are you actually being active all throughout your day? Or do you just have stuff going on? I think a lot of people just have stuff going on. We all have stuff going on. And it doesn't mean that doesn't feel tiring. It doesn't mean that doesn't feel exhausting. You can sit in 3 hours of traffic and it feels tiring, but it doesn't mean you did anything, right? So I think we need to separate that as well. But if you're actually moving, getting steps in all day long, there's a lot of benefit to that from an all the time exercise perspective. And one of the biggest things is it can help to minimize and potentially reverse insulin resistance.
Yeah, I think today, Charlie, I wanted to say this because today we did a whole bunch of all the time exercise. And I wanted to tell you all the different stuff that we did, because just to kind of fill in, okay, what do you mean exactly not working out but moving? So today was the second weekend that our apple orchard was open. So we actually woke up. It's a Saturday right now that we're recording. Our kids are in bed. It's a Saturday. So we woke up, we ate breakfast, and then we drove to the apple orchard. And to get to the apple orchard, our 2-year-old is currently scared of anything with an engine. So we couldn't take the hayride. So we did a 5-minute walk with little hills, and we were obviously carrying both of our kids. And then we walked around the apple orchard probably for about 30 to 40 minutes. And then we walked back to the entrance of the apple orchard, which was another good 5-minute rolling hill walk. Then we drove home.
Well, we drove home, but even before that, starting at 5:30 before the sun got up, Caliber decided to wake up, our 5-month-old son. And so the only thing that I have found that I can possibly do to help him relax when he's up at that hour of the day is go for a walk. So he and I went for an hour walk this morning.
Yeah. So you guys did that.
Yeah. So we did that. Then we came back, we made breakfast and got out the door. And then we're walking for probably, a good 45 minutes to an hour at the apple orchard. Yep.
Then we came home and had lunch, and Charlie rode the bike. So that would be the other category of workout, which we'll describe in just a minute, just so you have the contrast. And then my 2-year-old daughter decided not to nap. So I said, okay, well, let's all get in the stroller and let's go for a walk. And so we went for a very slow walk to the park because she wanted to ride her bike, and we played at the park. So that was a whole bunch of standing around. And then we like to go to the dog park and look at the dogs. We don't have a dog, but we like to stand at the fence. And she always says, come here, doggies. And I even told my daughter, okay, it's time for us to go home because my feet are hurting now, because we had been on our feet all day long. And then we walked home, and by that time it was 3:30 or so. So everything that we did today was a really active day. But other than your cycle ride, that was all all the time workout,
Well,
all the time exercise. And
yes.
then the
And
kids
then
went to bed and I hopped on the bike.
Right, exactly.
So almost the whole day was all the time exercise, which is, we didn't change into gym clothes to do it. You know, our heart rate might have gotten up temporarily, but it was all low intensity enough that we could do it for, I don't know, we probably moved straight for 5 hours today.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the key to all the time exercise. Even if we had walked, we've probably walked 2 or 3 hours total today, but it was all low intensity enough that we could do the 2 or 3 hours,
Right.
even though it was tiring.
Yes, exactly. So that's really the big thing, is that all the time exercise is done all the time, and it's done very frequently throughout your day, and it's done at a relatively low intensity. So it's something that you can do all the time. It doesn't take like a whole bunch of recovery time to get back and get ready to do it again. The second type of exercise that Julie alluded to is what we call special event exercise. And special event exercise is mostly what we think about when we think about exercise. When we think about, lifting the weights, going for the run, riding the bike, doing the class, okay? It's a sectioned off time of your day that maybe you put in your schedule or not, but as the name implies, it is a special event, okay? And so with that, that's usually done at a higher intensity. It's done for a shorter duration because it's not done all throughout the day. It's done in like one chunk for, that 20 minutes to 60 minutes as opposed to consistently throughout the day. And it usually does involve some kind of, clothing change, possibly location change, if you're going to the gym or going to your basement or something like that. And, you're going to change your clothes likely because it's done at a higher intensity. So you're going to be sweating or, things like that. So that's the other type of exercise. And Julie said, we both were able to get that in today because, we hopped on the cycle bike at different times. And even though we still did the all the time exercise all throughout the day, we still made it a point to get in the special event exercise in addition to that.
Absolutely. So one thing, if you're listening to this podcast and hopefully by the end you're thinking, oh, if I do a whole bunch of all the time, yeah, I definitely need to get in some special event. I remember at the end of today, I was thinking, man, I would like to work out. I don't want to be on my feet anymore because my feet are tired. So I can either lift weights or go on the cycle bike. So that's why I chose a cycle bike. So areas of your body can be tired. Like the standing part of my feet were tired, if that makes sense. I was like, I don't want to stand anymore. I don't want to go for a run or go for like a power walk or something. I want to get on the cycle bike. So that's what I chose. So the reason why we're highlighting this is because there are different health benefits to each type of exercise. And as Charlie already said before, one of the really great benefits of doing a whole bunch of all the time exercise, meaning you, the person that likes to move around all day, it's really good for preventing insulin resistance, which is one of the first steps that leads to a plethora of different chronic health diseases that are really prevalent in today's society.
Yeah, so what's really interesting about insulin resistance is it's actually not as much influenced by the amount of time you spend exercising as it is the duration of time you spend sedentary. Okay, so what does this mean? It means if you do your 60-minute workout and then you're sitting the other 23 hours of the day, that's horrible from an insulin resistance perspective, even though you're getting your 60-minute workout in every single day, okay? But if you do your 10-minute walk 6 different times throughout the day, even though it's still 60 minutes of activity because it's breaking up the other 23 hours of the day, like every 2 hours or whatever, you do a 10-minute walk, that's going to be more beneficial from an insulin resistance prevention and reversal standpoint because it's breaking up larger bouts of being sedentary. So you're only being sedentary for, say, 2 hours at a time as opposed to 23 hours at a time. So that's really the thing with insulin resistance, and that's where all the time exercise comes into play, is because it's that physical activity that you get intermittently throughout the day that, okay, you're sitting in the car and then you're walking a little bit, and then you're sitting at the office and then you're walking a little bit, and then you are, sitting at lunch and then you're walking a little bit. It's that breaking up your day with some physical activity. That's really the big takeaway when it comes to all the time exercise and how it can help to prevent and reverse insulin resistance.
So the criteria for this all the time exercise is that it happens all the time, meaning all throughout your day, and the intensity is low enough that you can keep doing it all throughout your day. It's not like you do one bout and then you're too tired to do any more. Now, one thing I also find a lot of is that sometimes people will do something at this low intensity, but for like an hour, meaning that they go for like a mild to moderate walk for an hour and they feel like, well, maybe that was the low intensity that I did all day. Well, no, that was low intensity and that was also clumped into one section. So that would technically be your special event exercise because, again, we have to see this dispersed throughout your day. And because it's dispersed throughout your day, that's why it can be at that lower intensity. The special event exercise will need to be at a higher intensity, even though it's a smaller chunk of your day.
And that's really the big thing with this special event exercise is that it is done at a higher intensity. So when we're talking about, getting the health benefits for your brain, for your cardiovascular system, for your muscles, for your joints, for increasing bone density, for helping to prevent and reverse chronic disease and illness, the intensity of it, the intensity of the physical activity of your exercise, that is a huge influencer over all of those things. And so that's why just doing your all the time exercise or just being active throughout your day is not enough if you actually want to be able to use exercise to build the health and function of your body. Your body responds from a health perspective in a large part to the amount of challenge that you are presenting to it, and specifically the amount of challenge that you're presenting to your muscles. So the more you can challenge your body, the more challenging a physical activity is, then the more potential benefit your body can glean from doing that activity. And if you're able to then recover from that activity and repeat it and do it a whole bunch and do it frequently, then you get a whole bunch of benefit from it. But that's really one of the biggest reasons why just feeling like, oh, well, I'm on my feet all day, I'm moving all day, that's not enough when it comes to feeling like, okay, well, I can check exercise off my to-do list. It's like, no, you actually do need your special event exercise if you really want to use exercise to build the health and function of your body.
Great. So let's say you're listening to this and you're thinking, yeah, I'm moving all day long. Let's troubleshoot some things. So you're going to try to start getting in the special event exercise. So you could do something like I did, where I felt like I was on my feet all day today, but I still wanted to get it in. So I knew I didn't want to do my special event exercise or my higher intensity, shorter duration exercise on my feet because they were already tired. So I decided to get on my bike. So you can try to do something like that. Maybe think about, hey, I'm going to go lift weights instead of go for a run because my legs are tired. Or maybe you felt like you were lifting all day. Maybe you were mulching your garden or something that was more laborious like that. Then maybe you decide to do a more higher intensity cardio and not do something so lifty. So think through that. Another way that I find to be helpful is if you can get in your special event exercise before the activities of your day begin. I know sometimes people aren't really morning people, but if you think about this, think about how your body feels at the end of the day and then doing a high intensity exercise versus if you got your high intensity exercise in the beginning of the day, I feel like that is less of a deterrent for you to continue to be active relative to the opposite.
Absolutely. I think it largely comes down to kind of removing the friction of what is preventing you from doing your special event exercise. And so if the feeling of fatigue of just like, oh, I've just been on my feet all day and that's why, I can't get my special event exercise in. Look, that's a large deterrent. I get it. In a lot of ways, it's a very valid feeling, but it's still not necessarily reason enough to say, okay, well, I shouldn't get my special event exercise in. So, okay, how do you remove that friction? Julie, I think you're right on. A large way you remove it is get your exercise in before the activities of your day get done. I think another thing that you can do to help with that is have everything set aside and planned ahead of time. Because if you are, like you're saying, if you're not a morning person and you don't want to spend, 10, 15 minutes just kind of working through the grog of the morning and then being like, okay, what do I need to do for my workout? Like, have your clothes set aside, have your shoes set aside, know exactly what you're going to do for your workout. If you use an app that has classes on it, like save your workout ahead of time, like know what exactly you're going to do, where you're going to run, where you're going to bike or whatever. So you just remove all the different barriers. You can literally just roll out of bed, put your clothes on, and, open up your app and get going. And so you want to make it as easy for yourself as possible. Exercise in itself is a challenge. You don't need to make everything else that is a catalyst for you to exercise. You don't need to make also that stuff a challenge, right? You don't need to make the getting dressed a challenge. You don't need to make the workouts decisions a challenge. You don't need to make the getting your protein shake or, water bottle or whatever all set up a challenge. Like, get that all done ahead of time. Make all that stuff easy. So then when it comes time to actually go and do your special event exercise, that's the only thing that's challenging.
I also would encourage you to use chunks of dead space in your schedule. Let's say, the morning's not going to work for you. I think with more and more people working from home or having days that they can work from home, or even if you work in the office, finding those chunks of time during your day to work out is really can really help you, because then you don't have to do it at the end of the day. I have a really cool story to tell you about how Charlie used some blank time one time. So we actually had our son this March, and I was very particular about the care team I wanted and the location where I was going to deliver, and I definitely chose a place for the care team. And let's just say the hospital wasn't like a luxury resort. And in our postpartum recovery room, there was literally enough space for Charlie's cot, my bed, and then our son Caliber's little bassinet. And then there was like a little hallway to the door to the main hallway. And then this tiny little bathroom. So needless to say, we barely had any room. I felt really claustrophobic in that room. But again, it was the care I was looking for. I wasn't looking for a luxury suite location. Anyways, when you have a baby and you're just like waiting around for all the checkups and getting discharged. Well, anyways, that day I got up to shower and I start hearing this like pitter pattering outside of the bathroom, and I come out and Charlie is just kicking booty doing one of our at-home workout cardios, which needed no equipment. And at the end, he's like, wow, you really can do the at-home workout program in a 2x2 square. What did you say?
It was a really tiny space.
It was really small. I mean, you probably had like 2 or 3 feet by 2 or 3 feet. Mm-hmm. That was it. Mm-hmm. But I just loved that because I thought, wow, who works out in the hospital? Number one, it's a great excuse to not work out. And number two, there was literally no room. Mm-hmm. There was no room. But you got it in.
Yep.
You got it in. And it only was 20 minutes. It was a weird day. It wasn't a day where you could like commit a whole bunch of time or, special clothing or whatever. But you got in your workout in that little space. That's probably what most people would have like in their office,
right.
I think.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So that's the great thing about what we created with the home workouts bundle is that it doesn't take up much space. You really don't need much equipment. You don't need much time at all. So there are a lot of different options with that. But the point is there are opportunities throughout your day. You don't have to wait until the end of the day when you're feeling exhausted, when you're feeling, like, oh, I've just been so active all day. Well, now I just don't have the energy to get it in. There are opportunities throughout your day, but if you're not looking for those opportunities, you're not going to see those as opportunities. I remember a story about you, Julie. You're standing in line for checking your bags at the airport, and the line was kind of long, and all of a sudden you just start doing some lunges and you start doing some skater hops and going back and forth. You're like, okay, I'm going to be in this line for like 15 minutes, so I might as well do something, right? But how many times do you see people like working out in the TSA line or in the security line when they're waiting to get through at the airport? It's like, well, I really could use this time to like scroll my feed or, check my email or whatever. It's like, yeah, or you actually have this time to do something. So I guess my point in saying that is that time is there, but because either you haven't given yourself permission to use it for exercise or because you're not looking for opportunities to use it for exercise, then you're not going to see it. Or if you do see it, you're going to feel weird about it. And you're going to feel like, oh, well, I just shouldn't get it in. I should just be like everybody else and just keep scrolling my phone or whatever. But those opportunities are there. We've created some really convenient ways to seize those opportunities, and in large part through the MAS Home Workouts Bundle, which, by the way, you can get a discount on if you purchase it when you purchase the Exercise for Life Method book. So if you are interested in having over 100 workouts at the tips of your fingers that you can get in literally anywhere, even in a hospital room that there is not enough room to do a somersault in, you can still get your workouts in under 25 minutes using minimal equipment, and you can get a discount on that program when you purchase the Exercise for Life Method book from exerciseforlifemethod.com.
Yeah, while you were saying that, Charlie, I was thinking, I wonder if this is like a good enough argument for people to work out in the line at the airport or work out in their postpartum room at the hospital. But anyways, what I was thinking, and you'll see where I'm going with this, is, Charlie and I, we live here in Illinois, and I'm actually from Florida. And when you live in Florida, Disney World's kind of like a regular thing. People go to Disney World all the time. And when I moved to Illinois, I was telling Charlie, I was like, I just don't get it. Like, why do people go to Disney World all the time? It seems like so normal and like whatever. And then we had our kid, and then we had another kid, and the first kid is now 2 and is obsessed with Mickey Mouse. And I think now that she's obsessed with Mickey Mouse, we both are like, I don't know, maybe Disney's not such a bad thing, and then we think about all these reactions she might get if she actually saw like a real live Mickey and a real live Minnie Mouse. And then my friends, I have dance friends, I still dance, and they love Disney, and they tell me all the great things about Disney. And it starts seeming like, I really wouldn't mind overpaying for like 7 days of meals and breakfasts and weird resorts and everything labeled like Mickey. Like, it's probably worth it. It's interesting because when you become educated and exposed to all the cool things and the benefits that something can provide, like a Disney trip, the inconvenience of it, all the unnecessary parts of it, like, oh, do we really need Mickey Mouse waffles for $7? But one thing I loved about Charlie's new book, The Exercise for Life Method, which he just brought up, is that he dives into so many of the health benefits of exercise. And sometimes I feel like, man, if people really understood how exercise can impact their health that they can't even see right now, it would be so much easier for them to figure out where they could fit in their exercise. Because once something's important enough or valuable enough or cool enough or appealing enough, then people will try to figure out how to make it swing. Just like a few years ago, Charlie and I were saying, man, I don't understand why people do Disney. That seems ridiculous and overpriced and overrated. And now I think we both think, well, it would be really cool. I would love doing Disney. So anyways, I just wanted to give you that perspective because there's so many benefits of exercise that are just not even ever touched on in mainstream media and on your social feed and on Good Morning America. None of it's talked about. And in the book, Charlie talks about it. So definitely get your hands on that because I think just getting more educated about the health benefits of exercise will really help you learn how it's going to benefit your life. And once you realize that, then it's easy to find the time and much more appealing to find the time.
Absolutely. So if you are active all day, if you are constantly on your feet, if you are constantly doing stuff, moving around, going from here to there, keep it up. Don't slow down with that. Keep it up. But do not use that as a reason why you should not get your more structured, focused, and intense workouts in. Those still need to be done, even if you are active all day, because there are huge health benefits that you are leaving on the table And unfortunately, there are huge health negative repercussions that are going to likely be presenting themselves if you continue to skip out on that, what we call special event exercise. So stay moving throughout your day, stay doing stuff, stay feeling like you are just constantly being active. Keep that up, but make sure to consistently add in your structured, intense, focused, intentional physical activity, because that's going to provide a whole bunch of health benefits and ward off a whole bunch of health consequences that being physically active all the time just throughout your day won't be able to do for you. So who do you know that needs to hear this episode? Who do you know that is constantly on their feet all day long and they feel like that is a reason why they shouldn't be doing more structured, intense, focused exercise? Share this episode with them so they can hear our thoughts on that and our advice as to how to still get their more special event exercise in. And while you're online, head on over to iTunes and leave us a rating and review. It helps people find this podcast when they're looking for information on exercise and when they're looking for information on health. So if you found value in this conversation today, let us know by leaving us that 5-star rating and review. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. We always appreciate it. Have a fantastic week, and we'll talk with you all next week. So how'd you like that episode? Did you find the information useful? If you enjoyed what we discussed today, then you are going to love the Exercise for Life Method, which is a book that we just put out and you can get a free copy of by going to exerciseforlifemethod.com. All we ask is that you pay for shipping and handling, so head there now and get your free copy, as well as some exclusive bonuses that you will get instant access to when you get the book. You can learn more and get your copy at exerciseforlifemethod.com. This podcast is for information purposes only. The statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Julie and Charlie Gates, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements or advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical issue, consult a licensed physician.